The third Avatar film is now in theaters. Does it taste just as sweet as the first two, or does it turn to ash in your mouth? Let's find out.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Once more unto the bridge, dear friends.
Again and again until we're both dead.
There's only like 12 stories. They change around little details, but they're all pretty much the same.
Deja vu. Something very familiar about it.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, Movie Reviews Connections of Mind. Avatar, Fire and Ash, the third film in the Avatar franchise, is a direct sequel to 2023's Avatar, The Way of Water. These were filmed back to back, so that makes sense. It is once again directed by James Cameron, and once again we return to the world of Pandora, where Jake Sully and his family are still being hunted by the human company on Pandora, and the humans get an unlikely ally when a hostile tribe of Na'vi who worship fire instead of the natural goddess of Awa team up with the humans in order to take down the Jake Sully and threaten the rest of the Na'vi on Pandora. Now, this review will contain spoilers of Fire and Ash. I'll be doing my spoiler-free thoughts first and foremost, though, but just so you know, there will be spoilers later on this review. So, first things first, let's get into some spoiler-free talk on Avatar, the Fire and Ash. Is this worth the wait? Is this a good Avatar film? This is a good theater experience, especially. I would say Avatar is one of those movies that is very much predicated on its theater experience because, as many people have pointed out, the plot is not exactly the most original, and the characters aren't necessarily the most gripping, but it's the world of Pandora, the scale, the action. That's what, especially in a 3D environment, that's what sells these movies and what makes people coming back to the theaters again for that. And so on that front, I would say it's definitely worth seeing in theaters, definitely worth seeing in 3D. However, I will put it out there that if you are particularly sensitive to high frame rates on certain videos, especially and even in a 3D environment, there are plenty of sequences, especially the action sequences, where in the 3D it switches to I think like 60 frames per second on certain action scenes, so it moves smoother than you're probably used to. So if you're sensitive to that, be wary of it. However, I don't think it ruins the movie by any means. I just was caught off guard, especially from the first scene. You'll know exactly what I mean. Whether it enhances the experience, I'm not entirely certain, but I'd be curious to see how that translates to home media later on down the stretch when it gets to streaming or Blu-ray on that front. But overall, as a spectacle, it is still worth the while. I will say it's not necessarily the most spectacular of the Avatar movies. I rewatched both of the previous ones prior to seeing the new one. And with, obviously the first Avatar, it introduced the world, the jungle environment. Second one, you had, those great underwater sequences and the water action. Here, you don't get very much new stuff associated with this. It's a lot of more of the same stuff. You get a lot more. You get more action scenes, on the ocean with the water. That's still part of it. You get great flying sequences. That's still part of it. The only really new things that's going here are there's really one extent, a new part of the world, I guess, is there's one sequence where these free traders who come through the town, they have these cool balloon animals. And I'm not sure if that's in the trailer, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Those are pretty cool. And the only other really new set piece is the home of the Fire Tribe or whatever. I know they have another name. I'm just going to call them the Fire Tribe. It's just easier that way. And in that regard, you don't need to do 3D for that because it's just gray, ashy, some orange from distant volcano, and that's it. That's all you get for that. There's one brief sequence in there that's kind of cool on a 3D scale, but Overall, the spectacle, I think, new spectacle rather, is lacking. You get more of what spectacle we've gotten in previous Avatar installments, and I think people are going to use that as a stake to drive through the heart of this movie, because they're like, oh, it gives nothing new whatsoever, and it's just the same over and over. And I can't say that that's entirely wrong, because I'll get to it later in my spoiler talk, but this plot is very similar to the previous Avatar films. So from that standpoint, there is some repetition on that. But then again, people were complaining that the plots for the original Avatar were ripping off, Ferngully, Dances with Wolves, whatever. So the plot repeating other things is not anything new on that front. So on that front, I'd say that's not necessarily the death knell of it. And and on that front, there is some new stuff added. The Fire Tribe that they add to it, it has potential, and I would like to learn more about it. Unfortunately, I don't think the movie goes far enough to exploit, to fully explore what's going on here, or it could have done more in this. I think part of the reason why they did that is because it was announced way back when, where it's like, oh, we've got, there are 4 sequels to Avatar that we planned, and this is the second sequel, so they've got another set of 2 that they're planning in the 2030s, I think. So, they think when they were writing this, it felt like they had more runway to go, so they can keep some things back. But I think that's kind of a mistake, because that would have helped enhance this movie even more. And when I say what it could have enhanced it, the standouts character, I think, in this installment were, we see more of Stephen Lang's Quaritch in Na'vi, in his Na'vi body, and his interaction with the leader of the Fire Tribe, who is Varang, played by Una Chaplin. She does a great job on this. When she has this, the dark side, elements to it, where we've been exposed to, quote unquote, the hippy dippy, versions of, the priestess characters and the mysticism on this. This is the dark side, the flip side of that, the other half side of the coin of that kind of mysticism, and her backstory of her tribe and what her motivations are. That is interesting. And when she teams up with Quaritch at a certain point, that is, that dynamic really is the most interesting thing in this, in the rest of the movie. Yes, there's a plot that goes on around. There's other personal conflicts in this, new family dynamics, but overall, I'd say, the Fire Tribe is the most interesting. It's called Fire and Ash, so they should be the most important new addition. They are the more interesting thing, but I don't think they go quite enough on that. And really, that's kind of a shame, because when they start setting things up, by the time this movie ends, it feels like nothing much was accomplished on that. It doesn't. It feels like we're just leaving too many plot threads hanging, expecting a sequel to come, and I guess you could say that makes you leaving you wanting more, but on the other hand, it's like, I'm not sure I got enough to really satisfy this time around, to the point where that would tip me over to really want to learn more and wait 5 more years or so for another sequel. You know what I mean? So overall, I would say if you enjoyed the previous Avatars, you will enjoy this one. However, I don't think you're going to like this as much as the previous 2. So, and that was kind of my experience. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't quite as good as, personally, of the 3, I still prefer the original Avatar, but I'd say the Way of Water at least equaled, for the most part, the first Avatar. This one felt a couple of notches down. Still decent for what it is, but still a couple notches down. And On a last note before I grade this, beware of the runtime on this because it is over 3 hours long, and if you're going to a theater, plan your bathroom breaks accordingly. I'll just leave it at that. So if I was going to give Avatar: Fire and Ash a letter grade, I would say this is a solid B. And if I was going to weigh this in on the scale of unoriginality, I would say this weighs in at less than original, which means you've seen it before, but it could be worse. So those are my main spoiler-free thoughts on Avatar: Fire and Ash. Let's get into some spoiler talk as to certain plot developments or character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. So, like I said, a lot of people are probably going to be pointing to this and saying, like, yes, it's basically the same plot as the previous Avatars. And yeah, they're not wrong because, especially the case in point, I think, is the final battle where, you have the company, the humans approaching this sacred area where, something important's happening. In this case, it's the calving communion thing or whatever. And you have the, Sully's troops, up high and, the ground slash water troops, down below. And they do the 2-prong attack. Things go great. And then something happens to turn the tide. It all looks like it's going, pear-shaped. And then all of a sudden, Awa, manipulates the non-bonded animals to turn the tide back once again into the good guy's favor. And then we have a one-on-one battle between Quaritch and Jake Sully. So that sounds like the first Avatar's plot. That's pretty much this one again. And also the second one. That's kind of the same thing as well, more or less. So, like I said, the beats are the same. I can't deny that. But, I don't think that's necessarily a nail in the coffin. I will say if they do it one more time in the movie number 4 or whatever, then I think you might see more and more people rebel against this franchise, I would think. So there's that. You could also say that the character of Spider is sort of a Paul Atreides type character from Dune, where now he's been physically changed, that he's adapting to this harsh environment. Now he doesn't have to have the respirator to breathe, and he grows the kudu or whatever it's called, the ponytail with the antenna that you can hook into certain things. So he's got that going for him. So he's a hybrid now, but he's adapted to the world and learning their ways. And it sure seems like they're building him up to, oh man, he's the most important human on this planet now. We can't let anyone get a hold of him. So there's that going for him. Another thing that I noticed in this, and I'm not sure I really like this change, is how they represent the spirit world in this, where in the original movie, they have, Neytiri explains it where she connects to the spirit tree and you can hear the voices of their ancestors and you just hear whispers. It's kind of an ethereal sense. It's like it left up to the imagination. It's like, oh, what is this? Like, what does this community look like? And then now we get the answer, like, oh yeah, it's basically like the Matrix or, the framework from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it's like, yeah, it's just a direct one-to-one download of your memories up to that point. And it's like, you have the one son character's like, yeah, it was great to hang out with you. How did I die? It's like, that just feels like it takes the mystery out of it, and it's just like, all right, whatever. That's kind of is. And especially near the end where, they connect once again to it, and you see them meeting all of these characters who have died in the previous movies. It's like, oh, we're glad to see you here. It's like, with the James Cameron effect, he likes to homage his previous movies. This felt like an homage to the end of Titanic. When Rose, is, I don't know if she was dreaming or if she died, but then, at the end of the movie, we see her as her younger self, entering the Titanic and meeting up with Jack again. And it's like, oh, it's happily ever after. And it's like, it kind of felt like that too on this one. So that was kind of interesting thoughts. And then just a couple of, last, connections, just brief, homages. One, I couldn't help but think when the fire tribe's attacking the balloon animals, and the one guy ends up taking a suicide run where he has the flaming bag and he dive bombs onto the balloon to blow it up. That just made me think of Mad Max Fury Road, witness me, that sort of thing. I'm sure that's totally coincidental, but I couldn't help but think of that. And of course, being a Trekkie myself, I could not help but think when Kiri is connected to the plants and she uses the spike spitting flowers to take out the guards. I'm like, that's just the apple from the original series, or as science fiction double feature put it, Jim and Scott fight a trivet that spits poison and kills. So there's a connection there as well. So I mean, those are my main points of comparison. My last thought before I wrap this up is just that a lot of people say that the narration in Avatar 1 and 2 is kind of unnecessary and disjointed. But it's, that's just kind of how it was in the first movie. And then the second one, I didn't mind as much just because they were porting it over. But now with the younger son doing narration things briefly, it's like, that is really unnecessary. And it's kind of annoying. He's not saying anything particularly important. Like, why do we need that? So I don't know. That was my little pet peeve of this movie. What did you think of Avatar Fire and Ash? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my last TV review of the year, which I'm waiting for all episodes to be released of Stranger Things 5, which means it may end up being a late night on New Year's Eve for getting that review out before the end of the year. And also, I'll be doing my best and worst of the year video for that, and a special featurette looking back on various films that are hitting milestones rather in 2026. That'll come out New Year's Day / weekend. I'm not sure what day I'll be able to put that up, but look for all that coming up on my channel in the next coming days. Again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much. I'm very much appreciative of every audience member I could get. If you liked this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially a subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching again. Just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.